There you are. Hey,
Hey,
Marcia.
hey, how are you? Good to
Excellent.
see you. Hey,
I am good. How are you?
I'm doing great, doing great. Looking so forward to this. It's going to be a good conversation, and hopefully we have
Yes.
some fantastic questions.
Yes, I'm excited. And if any of you guys that are tuning in have questions, feel free to drop it in the comments. And if we get to it, we'd love to try to answer some of your guys' questions while you're here too. Just so that all you know, we are recording today's live and I'll be posting it to my social media. Marcia will also have a video that she'll be posting too. We are here on our Instagram and we also have Facebook pages. But a lot of you also don't really know who we are. So I thought that we'd just go through a quick introduction, starting with Marcia, my wonderful guest that's joining me today.
Well, thank you for having me. My name is Marcia Bauer. I'm a dietitian. I'm also a licensed dietitian in the state of Iowa and Nebraska, as well as a diabetes educator, certified diabetes education specialist. I've been a dietitian for a long time and just thoroughly enjoy working and helping people understand how nutrients work in their body for whatever reason. How about you, Sarah?
Awesome. And I'm Sarah Leong-Lopes. I am based out of California, I'm licensed here in California, and I'm a physical therapist that practices mostly with adults. I have had some experience with kids, but right now my focus and my emphasis is on adult pickleball athletes. So I'm really excited to be having Marcia here because I've got some questions for her on, how can pickleball athletes take advantage of, their energy and their health on a nutrition standpoint, because, it is a very active sport, although it is, relatively low intensity and easy to get into. We also still need to make sure that we're fueling our bodies properly. So I'm super, super excited to have her on. For those of you who are not familiar with pickleball, it is a paddle sport, kind of akin to a cross between tennis and ping pong and badminton. It started in the 60s and has been rapidly growing since then. And there's a lot of individuals that have been playing lately. Before we jump into nutrition questions, do you have any questions for me, Marcia?
Well, I just would like to know, I think my population of people that may have either pre-diabetes, diabetes, they may be just questioning, what pickleball is and how easy it is to get into. If it's a difficult thing, how do they find a pickleball place? Or do they have to be competitive, or how does that all work, Sarah?
Yeah, absolutely. So pickleball is pretty easy to jump into, in the sense of most of the community is very, very welcoming and is open to having other folks join and learn. That's how my parents got to know about pickleball. Is they just checked out a court one day and everybody was like, "Hey, you're new. Let's show you how this works." It's pretty low impact, not as high speed as tennis. It's kind of nice. You can control how fast or slow the ball is hit, but it definitely requires some balance and it requires a little bit of endurance, just because you are playing these games and they only last about 15 to 25 minutes on average. Some of the games can last longer depending on how many points you're playing to, or if it's a tournament, if you're playing singles versus doubles. Sometimes there'll be a timer on how long a match goes. But generally, there are a lot of websites that you can use to look up courts in order to play. There is a global pickleball network that has a list. There's also websites that are dedicated specific to your zone. If you're on Facebook, there's a Facebook page called the Pickleball Forum, which I know is a pretty well-known pickleball forum on Facebook that people can jump in and chat with one another. There's also pickleball.com. And I'll have a list of other websites that I can definitely post as a resource for those of you that are wanting to jump in and play. Yes. Did I cover everything from your question?
Well, you
I'm
did.
trying to make sure if I missed.
I think people would be interested because I think most people with diabetes know they need to be active, and or whether they may not have diabetes. We all know we need to move more, and
Yes.
pickleball sounds like it would be fun. And you would
Hmm.
be doing some activities that you don't realize you're burning as many calories, or that you're actually helping that muscle increase because you're doing something really fun. And so your mind is on making points. And it sounds like it'd be kind of fun to get in with a group of people that are, I mean, that are just starting out all together, so you can laugh. And I know here in Iowa, we have a place called Smash Park, and there's different games
Oh,
going on
fun.
all the time, and it's not all pickleball, so it's these different things. And people, a good place to go to maybe just learn and start and do it together and laugh and have fun and not worry about being real competitive. But then if they want to get competitive, sounds like it's very doable.
Yes. Yes. And also, thank you, Sigimundo. Places2play.org is also a website that you can use to look up courts in your area, which is another great resource to use.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well,
That's
without
great.
further ado, let's get started on some of the questions that I have for you. And as we chat, I know that you have some
Okay.
great questions to bounce off as well. So I guess
Okay.
one of the big ones is, a lot of folks when you play pickleball, they want to be able to eat a decent breakfast. They'll kind of eat a breakfast and then go play first thing in the day. And sometimes you can spend 1 to 3 hours just because the games are so short. It's easy to jump in to another game. But in terms of fueling up, what are some foods or types of foods that would be really good to eat for energy into playing a game, but won't sit too heavy on the stomach and won't kind of give you like a fog because you're digesting.
Yeah. Well, most people, you need a nice balance. You need, if it's breakfast and you're going to compete in 90 minutes, you wouldn't want it to be too fatty, because fat's going to stay in that stomach longer, and you're going to get that heavy feeling. So if you were going to have a couple scrambled eggs, you maybe leave the bacon off for that day, but you might have some fruit for some carbohydrates, so some berries or blackberries or strawberries. That would be easily digestible. You need a little protein, a little carbohydrate, and if you wanted a piece of toast, that breaks down easier than bread does. Or milk is really good. Yogurt is really good. That would be something to get you to the game. Um, I would stay away from nuts. I'd stay away from nut butters, just because they're very high concentrated of fat. A good fat, very good, polyunsaturated, monounsaturated fat, but they're going to sit in your stomach longer. So would avocados. That would be a good meal to eat after you're all done, so that you could eat a good fat and be really satisfied. But just if you're going to go play 90 minutes before you play, I would just have like a lean protein and some fruit or bread or yogurt.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Perfect. So that's kind of before you play. I know a lot of people consider, eating either like parfaits or even smoothies. Are those kind of along the lines of what you're thinking
Yeah.
of? What you'd
So,
recommend?
so what I would do for a smoothie, I would use the fat-free Greek yogurt. That would be a good source of protein. It wouldn't have a lot of fat to sit there. And then berries, and really you just blend those up by themselves. Maybe you throw in a little bit of mango for sweetness, or a half a banana. So then you'd have some potassium, you'd have protein, you'd have fiber, you'd have those antioxidants that fight off inflammation. So, with playing, if you trip or fall, and inflammation causes a lot of area to be inflamed. Well, that happens on the inside of us too. So if we eat better every day, ideally, that would be great. But before that match, a smoothie would be great.
Awesome. Good to know. And also in terms of kind of decreasing inflammation, I know that's really huge, especially in individuals who already are experiencing pain or who may have other ailments or comorbidities that are inflammation influenced. So that's good to know. Good to know that those are super
Yeah.
helpful. How
Yeah.
about I wanna touch base on the food to eat after you play. But like, let's say that you're playing a tournament, or you're wanting to do a quick snack before you jump into another game during a day. Um, are there any snacks or quick things that you would recommend eating just to kind of give another boost of nutrients between games?
So, runners or hikers that are going for like 9 hours hiking up a 14,000-foot mountain, a quick carbohydrate is what you'd want to do. So if you were back to back doing pickleball, and you were really intense and you were working hard, there's supplements you can get, like GU is one, is GU. It's a
Okay.
quick, just straight carbohydrate. It's got a little bit of amino acid with it, but it's comes in different flavors. You can get it at some of your sports stores, and I recommend don't go buy a bunch because you may not like the flavors. So make sure you try different ones before you go buy. But berries are really good. I mean, or watermelon. Just saw a cute little video today of somebody that just blended up some watermelon with a squeeze of lime, and then they poured it in like popsicle molds. They were doing it for their kids, but this would be great for a pickleball tournament because you take those in a cooler with ice or frozen, and that would be a great replacement because watermelon is high in potassium. You could add
Mm-hmm.
a sprinkle of salt in there so you don't have to have those other supplements or waters that have all the electrolytes and all the artificial color.
Mm-hmm.
So you could just have it your own natural, and you could make whatever combination of just fruit, a little salt, and a little lemon or lime to keep it from browning. That would be very refreshing. Because you know how
Awesome.
watermelon, you don't want to take a big bite of a watermelon, get it all over your clothes and stuff, because you're going to go play another game. So those would be kind of handy.
Oh, awesome. So watermelon's super handy. I'm definitely going to, reach out to some tournament directors and be like, "Hey, watermelon snacks are probably a good idea." Awesome. And then I know some people will reach for like a banana or a pickle. Are those like
Oh,
okay to kind of
yeah.
snack on or in between?
Yeah. Pickles, a whole pickle has about 2,000 milligrams of sodium in it. So that's your daily requirement in one pickle. So, but if you're a heavy sweater, and how you'll know is if you'll get those sweat marks around your head or
Mm,
if you have a visor and you get that white mark, that means you're an excessive sweater. And so you
okay.
need a little bit more sodium. So a pickle or just a
Okay.
little bit more salt on your scrambled eggs in the morning, or that banana is very high potassium. I mean, it sounds cliche, but honestly, just real food is so much
Hmm.
better than buying all those supplements. Now, if you're a
Yeah.
person that's just on the go all the time and you don't have time to make some of that stuff, then that's where those come in handy. If you're back to back on tournament, one match right after another, I'd recommend the like Propel water because there's just a little bit of carbohydrate in there, but it's not over amount. And if you had just a pickle for lunch, on your sandwich, say you're going to have a sandwich for lunch and your match isn't in for 90 minutes. That lean turkey, ham, mustards, high sodium, a couple slices of pickle on there. You're going to have enough sodium if you put a slice of or cherry tomatoes on the side, or sliced tomatoes. That would give you some potassium. That way, you can do this with real food simply, really simply.
Nice. Good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's something that a lot of people I think are looking more for too. I want to shout out West Spring Nutrition says that she also love or they also love Propel water as well. So yay, we got someone else on board for that. And then looks like we have somebody who already says that they've got the white on their hat. And again, that means that they're an excessive sweater, right? So
Yes.
it sounds like
Yeah.
we don't have to be super duper concerned by, the high amount of sodium in a pickle necessarily, because especially if you're sweating a lot, you actually do need that. And with a lot of these fruits and foods and lean meats and such, if you're fueling your body well enough, then muscle cramps probably aren't as much of a concern at that point, or would there be anything else that you would add to kind of prevent from muscle cramps happening?
So I think it could be a low potassium, low sodium, but a lot of times, many times it's just you're dehydrated. And, keeping enough water in your life every single day is very advantageous if you want to perform the very best. The people that you just think of your blood when it gets thick because of it doesn't have as much fluid in it. So it's harder for that heart to pump that blood up and down your body in a split second. So your heart is having to work harder, so your blood flow isn't getting to your muscles. And if you want to be quick on the court, you really want that blood flowing easy, much easier, so that heart doesn't have to work so hard. So hydration is probably the biggest reason for some of that cramping. Do you see people, Sarah, that cramp during a game, after a game, or the evening after?
It varies. It really varies. There are some people who will get a cramp during a game. Some folks afterwards, they'll be like, "Ooh, like I can tell like my muscles are really, really tired and tight," is usually what I hear after a game. And there are some folks that will say like, yeah, at the end of the day, I was really, really sore. So I hear kind of cramping that's the terminology I've heard. Cramping
Okay,
during the
thanks.
game, kind of achy, tight after the game, and then like really sore if it's gotten to that point at the end of the day. That's
Yeah.
the terminology I've heard.
So when from the physical therapist standpoint, if they haven't warmed up enough with their muscle mass, I mean, with their muscles, does that have an impact?
Yes, yeah. If they haven't done, like, I usually recommend dynamic warm-ups where you're moving, not so much like a hold stretch. Usually those just 5 minutes of a dynamic warm-up can be enough to get all the blood properly pumping to the muscles. It alerts the body, hey, we're going to be doing some work. We need to redirect some of our blood flow to our muscles and our nerves so that our joints are prepared to do all this activity. And then at that point, usually we'll see less chances of, an injury that just comes from muscles and joints that haven't been warmed up properly.
Then
Yeah.
do you have them stretch afterwards also? Or
Yes, I do recommend stretch or cool down. I usually like to use the terms warm up and cool down because a lot of times when people think about stretching, it's, oh, my whole body needs to be fully relaxed and I'm leaning really far into this position. But really, it's just a really intentional, focused movement when you're warming up so that the different muscles of the body know what to expect, and then at the end cooling down so the body and the muscles know, okay, we've done our activity, we can kind of slow down a little bit and redirect our blood flow to wherever else we need to. So it's you still have some muscle activation, but it's intentional, specific activity, as opposed to just, oh, let me just like lift up my leg onto this chair and hold it for a really long time.
That's probably something I would do.
Yes.
without the right directions from my physical therapist. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well,
You
good to
guys
know.
have
So we
so much
covered,
knowledge. Pardon me?
yes, yes, and yeah, lots of knowledge on our end to share with you guys, and I'm already learning so much from chatting with you right now. So just a quick review, we've covered breakfast. You want to eat some berries. You want to have less fats, less nuts, a little bit more like lean protein to start the day 90 minutes before you play. You can snack on some watermelon or banana or pickles, stuff that has some sodium and carbohydrates in it during the day. And then when you're trying to recover after playing a lot of pickleball in a day, what would you recommend the body, be fed with again? You chatted a little bit about lean protein already.
Well, you'd want to replace some of the carbohydrate that you use from your muscles. Your muscles have glycogen stores, which are just sugar stores that your muscles have been taught to take out of the bloodstream so that you can do that rapid burst of energy to hit that ball and go and run. So you want to replace those. So a little carbohydrate, so 30 grams of carbohydrate is a recommendation, and then a 30-gram protein shake. The elite athletes in any sport will replace with 30 to 60 grams of protein within the first 30 minutes of any high
Oh,
intensity
good to know.
activity. So if a protein shake would be great then, or that smoothie that has that cup of Greek yogurt in it and the berries. So that would be a great combination of before and an after, because you're going to get both. And really that first 30 minutes is key to get that protein back in, because that's when your muscles are, you know, they've worked hard. They've kind of broken down, right? And to get that repair, they are very thirsty for carbohydrate, and they're really thirsty for amino acids. So amino acids come from, I mean, they can come from plants too, but you're going to get the biggest bang for your buck for Greek yogurt, or even a glass of milk. A lot of times athletes will use a cup of chocolate milk or 2 cups of chocolate milk, just the low-fat chocolate milk that's already mixed up. So if you don't have time to do a smoothie, that's very helpful.
Good to know. Yeah, so kind of bookending your day before you play and after you play with kind of the similar nutrients.
Yes.
That's awesome. I know that there are a lot of pickleball players who like to enjoy a beverage, a nice cool beverage, or will sit down with a glass of wine to reward themselves after a day. Are there particular beverages either along those lines or other drinks that you would recommend?
Well, you know, the bad thing with alcohol is dehydrating. So here, if they've been out there in this hot sun playing all these meet back to back to back, and there's a big sweater, they're going to be dehydrated. So we like to hydrate and make sure you've added. Most athletes replace 2 cups of water for every pound lost. So if you got on the scale before you started that day, you get on the scale just to see what was your loss. Replace it with 2 cups of water. So if you lost 2 pounds, you do 4 cups of water. So a quart of water. And I would do that before you have your glass of wine.
Okay. So not necessarily cut it out completely, but just make sure you're well hydrated again before you go back and enjoy your other drink.
Yeah.
It looks like we have, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, like, just like you said, what, you know, those joints, they've been moving, but water is what hydrates those joints and keep them moving, well greased. You know.
Yes.
You had a question.
I like that. Yes, the well greased is a good analogy, because a lot of people are familiar with kind of greasing their tires and stuff like that. We do have a question from Sigimundo. Is hot oatmeal too heavy before playing and not enough nutrients?
Oh no, I think oatmeal would be great. It has a lot of B vitamins. I would use either steel cut oats or just old fashioned oats. I wouldn't do the instant packet oats. And then I would add berries to it. I just wouldn't add nuts to it.
Okay, good to know. And then again, the Greek yogurt you were also recommending as part of it, if they wanted to add it into a parfait or something like that.
Yeah.
Oh, good. So a lot of great information so far. Just a review for those of you who have just tuned in, and those of you that are listening in. So at the beginning of the day, wanting to do, you know, less of the fats, less of the nuts, doing a little bit more with berries and some carbohydrates 90 minutes before playing. Am I getting that right so far?
That's correct.
Perfect. Some nice snacks with some sodium in between games, like pickles and bananas and watermelons, smoothies or snacks, and then refueling the body after you've been playing a long day with similar things that you ate at the beginning of the day, with some lean proteins too, and some Greek yogurt and berries, and making sure you stay hydrated throughout. Am I still on track so far?
You are right on track, Sarah.
Perfect. You're a good teacher. It's easy for me to remember. See, this is great. And then also, for each pound, you said for each pound that you have lost from sweat and such throughout the day, you want to replace that with 2 cups, correct, of water again at the other end of the day. Awesome. Good.
And then
so
enjoy your alcoholic beverage.
Yes. Enjoy your reward for playing a good day, a good game. So, and then you're also saying, oh, yes, go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to let people know that if you go to, since it's Fruit and Vegetable Month, it's the National Fruit and Vegetable Month,
Oh,
Dole
cool.
has some great recipes on their website. And I found one today. They have one called the Vitamin C Immunity Shot. And it's got
Nice.
some orange juice, it's got some ginger and turmeric in it, which would be super easy. And what they did was they just froze it in ice cube trays, and they put it in their glass to go. And then, so that would be a great replacer too, because oranges are real high in potassium, plus vitamin C, plus water, plus that you get that little turmeric, which helps with the anti-inflammatory properties. So that would be something cute. But they had great recipes there. So
that's awesome. Dole. We'll check
I got
out
to put
Dole.
my push in for fruit and vegetables, and
Yes.
Vitamix is a great place to look at recipes too. You don't have to have a Vitamix to look up on their internet. They've got lots of really good recipes. So if you're looking for good ones, they're high nutrient and super easy, and you could use any blender.
Excellent. Good to know. This is one of the reasons why I love chatting with folks that, you know, are in other healthcare zones and specialties than me, because I get all of these great resources to share with folks. We have a question. Can you please say the shot ingredients again?
Okay, it is, and you can find, if you go to Dole, D-O-L-E, Dole website, just their, fruit and vegetable. It's 2 oranges, 2 cups of Dole pineapple, fresh pineapple, 2 tablespoons of honey, 1.5 teaspoons of fresh ginger. We'll put it on our, we'll put it on
We'll
this.
find links and share it with you guys.
Half a teaspoon of turmeric, a half a cup of vinegar, apple cider vinegar, and an ice cube tray. Pretty easy.
Awesome.
Dole.com,
Thank you.
that's correct.
Someone posted the website. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yay.
That's
Love
great.
it. You guys helping one
Hey,
another
so
out.
I wanted to ask you, for people with diabetes, sometimes they have foot issues, and
Yes.
they want to make sure that they are wearing the right footwear. Is there do you have to wear special tennis shoes, or, is there anything?
So from my knowledge thus far, I'm not super familiar with specific brands that are specialized to folks that have diabetes that would be more beneficial to them. But in general, one of the things I will say right out of the gate is when you're looking for shoes to play pickleball or tennis or badminton, a lot of those sports have a lot of sideways movement in addition to forward and back. So you definitely want to make sure that you have lateral support. So maybe a little bit more stability and rigidity on the sides of your shoe, as opposed to a runner shoe, which is very streamlined because they're meant to be a bit more aerodynamic. So your running shoes are going to definitely be different than your walking shoes, and your walking shoes should be separate from your court shoes. So definitely wanting to make sure you have the support on the sides. You want to have a pretty wide toe box, not necessarily like extra wide, but I like to use this insole trick. A lot of times the shoe, you can take the insole out of the shoe and place it on the ground. And usually what I'll do is I'll take it out, I'll place it on the ground, I'll put my foot on top of it. And if my toes are hanging over the edges on either side or in front or back of that insole, then I know that maybe the toe box is going to be too narrow for me. And that can add a lot of excess pressure and some friction on a shoe. So especially for folks, who might have more to consider with their feet, I would say look for something that's got maybe a little bit wider of a toe box than you'd expect, or you can do that insole test to kind of check that out. And then the other points that are important is a good support in the arch and a really good support, rigid support in the heel behind the ankle.
You know how some running shoes, they're kind of tipped up. They've got a lot of padding underneath, and those, would people trip over that?
Yeah, there's a little bit more likeliness that folks can trip from stuff that has really high heel soles or just thick soles underneath. There's a balance of having to have, enough support but you don't want your heels to be lifted up or your feet to be lifted up, kind of like a platform, so to speak,
Yes.
from the ground, because you need to have that good purchase, that good traction on the floor, when you're going sideways, or when you're changing directions to go forward and backward. That's huge. And I wish I could say that there was like one brand that I would recommend, but in reality, everybody's feet is different. You kind of have to
Yeah.
try out a bunch of different shoes in order to find which one works best for you.
That's a great tip. I would have never thought to take that sole out. And
Yeah,
I mean, I will probably look for tennis shoes like that now just because of that tip. So thank you, Sarah. What
yeah,
about
it's great.
what do people when they're first beginning? And I'm sure this is probably depends on the person and what, how physically fit they are when they begin pickleball, or but are they more at risk for falling, or I guess that depends their physical ability.
Yeah, so there's different levels of play. There's, the twos and two fives are kind of the lower level play, when you're really, really beginner, trying to learn all the moves and the coordination. A lot of folks, when they jump in, they can start anywhere from a 3-0 towards 3-5, and there you're starting to get more movement, more involved. The things that really set these zones apart from kind of the higher levels of play into the 3-7s or 4-0s and up in the pros, that's more of just the consistency. But when you're just getting started, I would say, first of all, kind of look at yourself and understand what your expectation is for yourself going in. There are people who go in really competitive, and because pickleball can be pretty easy to pick up or pretty simple, to get the motions, kind of understand the motions, it's really easy to just want to dive and go for that one ball. And that's where we can see more falls more often, or especially if it's going over your head and you're like, oh, the ball's, it's a wiffle ball, it's traveling so slow, I can just back up and hit it. Then you'll see people kind of losing their balance to the back. So depending on how intensely you want to go after the ball, I would say is a pretty big indicator on whether or not you're a bit more at risk of a fall or not, because of all of the motions that you're going through. But if you're willing to understand what your fall risk is, if there is any, or if you have any anything that predisposes you to falls, then you can kind of temper your intensity of play to be able to safely navigate the court and not have to worry about losing your balance. I definitely believe that people can be more aware of their body enough to not put themselves in that compromising position.
Yeah, that's good.
Yes.
But I can see where it would be really tempting to run after that ball and pull a muscle or something. So
Oh, yes.
as a physical therapist, what are some things that they could do to warm up? Do you have something that you could just describe for a warm up before they even get out there with their friends and just dink around?
Yeah, absolutely. So I encourage people to warm up their legs and their shoulders. A lot of people kind of think, oh, with pickleball, we're just swinging our arms, so we only really need to focus our shoulder. Or there'll be people on the other end like, oh, well, like there's a lot of movement around the court, I need to warm up my legs. But you do need kind of a combination. I like to do heel raises, just kind of coming up onto your toes and coming back down to warm up your ankles. You can do stepping sideways and going forward and backward to kind of warm up the movement and the balance, as well as just kind of getting all of the muscles ready to go. Doing, just maybe like 5 sit to stands from a chair, or just squatting in the air can be a great way to warm up the knees and the hips. I have some people, I call them clock steps, where you're standing kind of in the middle and you put one foot forward and then you come back as if you're going from 12 o'clock back to the middle of the clock face, and then stepping out to 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, all the way around, and then switching feet when you go to the other side, either shifting your weight or just moving your legs to those directions to kind of warm up the hips. That's a great one for the hips too. I'll also recommend doing kind of arm circles, where you're tensing and you're stiffening the muscles as you're making circles with your arms, small and then bigger. That can be a great way to warm up the shoulder joint. And then I like to recommend stuff to kind of warm up the wrist, pushing up against your hand, down into your hand, turning your palm up, turning your palm down. That's a great way to warm up the wrist and the forearm, especially if you're, in your gripping hand, the hand that you're playing dominant with. Those are great ways to kind of warm up most of the muscles, a great number of the muscles in the body.
Is there so many minutes? Like, should they warm up like at least 10 minutes or longer?
Yeah, I actually would say even 5 minutes can be enough. You don't have to spend a whole lot of time. Again, the key is not how much you do, but how specifically you do it, how intentionally you do it. So if you spend a good 10 seconds on kind of each of these muscle groups and then kind of do a couple rounds of them, then that can be more than plenty just to, send the signal from your brain to your body, hey, we're about to do some activity. And this is how we're going to, these are the muscles that we're going to need. I have a question. Can you please post the warm-ups? Yes, I am working on a video right now to post some of these exercises that will be accessible to you wherever you're at. So you can just play the video and warm up alongside me.
That's great. That will be wonderful. Yeah, maybe I'll throw in some recipes.
Yes, that would be great. And a lot of these information that we've been talking about, Marcia and I will go back and we'll find the links and we'll post these links so that you can find them through our social media. And then I actually wanted to chat with you. I did have a question because since you specialize with diabetes, blood sugar is super, super huge. For people who maybe aren't aware if they have any blood sugar issues or people who are aware and are needing to work on it, what are some things that just, would be really great general knowledge to pass on to folks about what they should know about their blood sugar?
Well, so there's a lot of things, but encourage people, if you do have diabetes, if they would start checking their blood sugar. Many times people will just go to their doctor and their doctor will say, well, just do an A1C. And that's a average of your blood sugar or your glucose over a 3-month period or 90 days. And usually, and they won't do it any sooner because your red blood cells are replicating, and it takes that long for the old ones to slough off and the new ones come on. So the average blood sugar is not necessarily the best indicator of how well you're doing. You may have one, so if your A1C is over 7, that means you have had a higher blood sugar of 180 and you could have had a great blood sugar, but your average is 150, 160. So time and range is more important. So how do we know? You've got to have a glucose monitor and test your blood sugar before and after any exercise. That helps you see how many points you can really drop. And when you are exercising, that muscle is just pulling sugar out of your bloodstream. It's using it. So it's a great way if you've just been diagnosed or if you have that pre-diabetes, somebody's told you, hey, you're getting close to diabetes. Maybe you've got diabetes in your family like I do, and it's just, I'm going to eventually possibly get diabetes, trying to delay that as much as possible. But how you can find so much information just by testing your sugar. There are really inexpensive meters out there. The Walmart Rely On is only $9. And then the strips are $5 for 25. And that's very reliable. I've tested them against other meters that are $85, $100. And they will be almost verbatim the same blood sugar reading. So it's a great indicator. Even if you don't have diabetes, but you're struggling with some weight and you want to get a little weight off, oh my gosh, that tool is just phenomenal for you to see, gosh, if I eat a brownie, what is my blood sugar going to do? I would wait 2 hours, test your blood sugar. Or say you had a really big pasta dinner and you wanted to see if it had any impact. What I would do is eat that dinner, measure what was the amount of noodles that you ate. If it was 2 cups, 3 cups, measure that. And then 2 hours later, you test that blood sugar. And if you see a blood sugar and you don't have diabetes, and if it's over 120 after 2 hours, that should be a big flashing red light that something else is going on. And that in itself can help you decide, you know what, I'm not going to eat that much next time. And when you see that number, when you don't have type 1, people with type 1, they have no of their own insulin, so they have to require insulin injections, so they can get a continuous blood glucose monitor. Their insurance usually will pay for that, and those are so great. I wish everybody could have one. They're about $300 a month, which is costly, but
Yeah.
so advantageous, because you can see your blood sugar every 5 minutes without having to poke your finger. So it is just a phenomenal tool. I wore one for a week, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm not going to eat that again.
That's awesome that you're able to, pull so much information from all of these great things that we've been gifted with technology and all the research that's going on.
Yeah.
We do have another question about that. What are the signs of low blood sugar? If someone on the court shows that, do we give them something with sugar or no?
Usually the sign is profuse sweating, shakiness, irritability. So you, all of those things could be on the court, right? If you're out there in the heat and you're
Yes.
sweating and you're lost your pickleball, you could get upset. But if you know somebody's mentality, and if you're watching this and somebody else, or you're feeling it yourself, that, shakiness is usually what your brain is warning you that your sugars are going down, and it's letting you know, alert, alert. You're not there yet. You're not totally below 70, but you're close. And it's saying, feed me. It's warning you. So that's one symptom. Dry mouth. But see, on the pickleball court, you could have all of those symptoms. And how would you know? So it's if you're struggling, if you wonder if you do have, I'd go get a meter. Just go get a meter. And really, honestly, rely on, you have to buy the meter itself and then the little poker. We call it a lancet device. I call it a poker. And then one bottle of strips total, you're less than $20. And
nice.
yeah, it's easy to do. You want to test the side of your finger, not the pads. That's where your nerve endings are.
Yes, it's a little bit more painful. So with that, then, if there's someone on the court that's starting to notice this about themselves, would that be a good time to eat a pickle or eat a watermelon, or what would you recommend in the moment?
So in that moment, and I would do a carbohydrate. God bless you. The fastest thing would be juice. Okay. But you only need a half a cup. Don't drink a big 16-ounce glass of juice, because then if your sugar is going to go way too high. So I would just do a fourth of a cup to a half a cup. If you didn't have juice available, then we would use 1 cup of regular soda. That would get your blood sugar up. A lot of times people that have diabetes, they'll have glucose tabs with them, or glucose gel that they can squeeze on the inside of their mouth, and then they massage it in, and it gets into their bloodstream like that. So milk is also goes into the bloodstream fairly fast. The lactose in there gets in there faster, probably faster than juice. But, when you've been on a court and sweating and really hot, milk doesn't really sound very good.
Yeah, no, definitely not. Oh, good. That's great information. Awesome, awesome. So those were my questions that I had for you on nutrition. Do you have any other questions for me about pickleball for anyone on your side and who you serve?
Let's see. I asked you about the increased risk for falling, and we talked about the shoes. What is the age? What is the average age?
Yeah, so the average age is 33, or 33 to 37, but a good 33% of the core players are actually 60 years and up. So yes, the average age is kind of a little bit younger than what we a lot of see old. But yes, mostly older adults, folks that are 50 and up. From demographics that I've been seeing online with statistics, it's 60 and up. as kind of the bigger chunk. But there's folks from, you know, all ages. But it's definitely an older adult and senior dominant sport in a lot of
And
ways,
that's great. That is
especially
so good.
recreationally.
Yeah, because we don't want to get older, and when we sit around, we get older, right? We lose muscle mass. How much muscle does a person? Have you ever tested, or have they in physical therapy world? Do they know how that muscle replaces how fast, or even in their 60s, if you're really working out hard, and trying to change your muscle mass? Do you know that, Sarah?
Yeah, so in like a day-to-day or in like a standard clinic, there aren't necessarily a lot of physical therapists that will test everybody's muscle mass as they come through. But from the research that has gone on and from what we have seen in the clinics is even within the first couple of weeks, we'll start seeing muscle changes and strength gains. And even up to like a month and going into 2 months, that's when you really start seeing some progress. And a lot of that can come from exercise, but a lot of it also comes from the proper nutrition fueling those muscles, because each time you work out and you load and stress those muscle fibers, those muscle cells, there is a little bit of breakdown and then they rebuild even stronger than they were before. So you need to make sure that you have the right nutrition to help that process go well.
Yeah.
But even, there's kind of two parts to it. So in the first couple weeks or in the beginning of the phases, a lot of people will be like, oh man, I feel like I'm getting stronger already within the first workout. A lot of that is attributed more to the nerves that are being sent to the muscle cells getting more coordinated, getting more sensitive to the activation, getting the timing and the effectiveness and efficiency of those muscle contractions. So a lot of that is just the nervous system and the muscular system working together, the neuromuscular system and that motor unit. And then in the weeks after that, that's when you actually start seeing either more the actual muscle cells are getting bigger, or in really extreme situations or elite exercising, then you'll actually see the number of muscle cells also increasing. So short answer, 1 to 2 weeks you can start seeing changes. 1 to 2 months is when you really start seeing muscle gain and muscle tone, and that muscle strengthening can continue in the months and years to come if you continue to load the muscles a little bit heavier each time, and you're also supplying your muscles with the right nutrition.
So this is great for people that are aging, or we're all aging from the day we're born. We're all getting older, a day older every day. So and the nutrition, like building muscle, is super important if you want to maintain your status and your nutritional status, because we don't digest food. As the older we get, we don't digest as well. So even though you are eating some protein, make sure that I make sure all of our patients get at least 60 grams of protein a day minimum. That's not rounding up. That's just a solid good 60 grams of protein. So we figure 1 ounce of protein is equal to 7 grams. That's without gristle and skin. A lot of times people will, if they're too busy, they do a protein shake to help that muscle mass. But that's really, really important as we get older. We need to, and usually when you think about it, as people get older, they have dental issues, and so they quit eating meat, and they eat more carbohydrate, they don't eat enough protein, and then they lose muscle mass even faster, and then they won't be able to do that pickleball game as well. Their muscle you just can't grow muscle if you don't have enough protein.
Yes, we do have a question. Can you list all these recommended grams of everything you've mentioned? Yeah, so
sure
Marcia can definitely answer these here. And if you follow her on her Instagram and Facebook, you'll also get a lot more of this information too. But anyway, go ahead, Marcia.
So I recommend at least a minimum of 60 grams of protein. Is that what you're asking per day? And that
seems like it, yeah.
Yeah, that's minimum. So if you were even increasing your trying to build muscle, you may, depending on if you're man, male, female, that your muscle mass, you may need more, closer to 100 grams. And depending on your height, men typically have more muscle mass than women. So you need more protein per height and per pound. So it depends, but 60 is a bare minimum. And I would go, if your goal is to increase muscle mass, I would go as 90 for a woman, 80 to 90, and 100, 120 for men.
Okay, excellent. Perfect. I hope that answered your question. If you have a follow-up to that, please feel free to post it in the chat as well. Excellent. Any other questions for me, Marcia?
Oh gosh, this was so much fun. I
Yes.
just learned a lot about pickleball, and I think it really is just a good segue for people that want to get out and get more active. This summer is a great, here in Iowa, it's just, we went from winter to summer because now it's like 90. And so people are wanting to get out and do more activities. So I think it would be a really good start for people to start there. Then they don't have to feel like they're going to the gym, and you can do this with other people that are learning too, so you don't feel so awkward, right?
Yes.
What are some other benefits of pickleball that you see on your end?
Yeah, absolutely. Before I answer that question, let's address this follow-up question. What volume of water should one drink a day to stay adequately hydrated? Can I hyperhydrate before a tournament?
That's a great question. I would say, we figure about 30 cc's or an ounce for every kilogram of body weight you are. So you take your pounds divided by 2.2, and that gives you your kilograms. So you take that times 30, that gives you your milliliters. So 64 ounces is a good start. But again, if you're an excessive sweater and you've got that salt, or you can feel that crust on your forehead or your face after a tournament, then you're an excessive sweater, and that's to cool your body. We need that. So you're going to have to replace more water and a little bit of sodium. It doesn't have to be a lot. So that's, so about half your weight should be water. And then again, factor in, if you really want to know, weigh yourself before a tournament, weigh yourself right after, take a portable scale with you, and see how many pounds you've lost, replace for 1 pound, 2 cups of water.
Good to know. And then the following question from that was, can I hyperhydrate before a tournament? Can you give more clarification on what you mean by hyperhydrate? Or unless you kind of understand what that means right off the cuff.
Or I'm guessing you're thinking like carbohydrate loading. You're eating a lot of carbohydrate to be able to endure the spurt of energy that you're using. So are you saying you want to drink a whole bunch of water to see if that will help? I don't know if there's any research on that. I would say, and you can drink too much water. That's the real big thing. Your brain and my brain just went. You can drink too much water. So some people are very small and they're told to drink a gallon of water.
Yes, that was a conversation we had.
That wouldn't be so good. So hyponatremia, that's what it is. Sorry, my brain went off. But so if you're getting at least 64 to 100 ounces.
Okay, good to know. And again,
Yes.
And again, kind of like Marcia had mentioned before, you definitely want to make sure you're hydrating leading up to the day of the tournament. You don't want to just drink water right before you play. Make sure that you're trying to meet that daily intake leading up to that tournament. Another question, how do you feel about water additives like liquid IV?
We dietitians don't really like all these additives. We feel like it's like a Band-Aid. I see people in our clinic that want to use these products, when really all they need to do is be consistent with their water intake every day and drink consistently throughout the day. Don't drink a bunch at night because then you're up going to the bathroom all night. So the liquid IV, they've just added a little bit of sodium and potassium to it, which you could just do that with that orange shot. Or you could do that with maybe just take water, a pitcher of ice water, and take a piece of cantaloupe or any fruit actually, and let it just infuse that water. It only would take not even 30 minutes for that flavor to be in there. And sprinkle just a little salt in there and stir it in. You have your own liquid IV that you made by yourself, way less expensive and probably way better for you.
Good to know. Good to know. Good to know. Yeah, a lot of it you can get naturally. And sometimes that stuff can be a quick fix, but there are also natural ways of getting, quick intake as well.
And what we see is people, when you're more hydrated continuously throughout the day, you get used to drinking that much water and you want to drink that much water. And so then that becomes, and you got to think of your heart. Your heart is pumping that thick blood or thin blood. It's going to do a better job getting oxygen up and down your body to your brain, to those nerves that need to move, right? And tell the muscles to move if it can do it easily. But if you're dehydrated, so you don't want to hydrate just for your game. You want to hydrate every single day. And I tell you, you'll just feel so much better, especially people with diabetes. Their blood sugars are high. They're high. They need to hydrate every single day. So that's a lot of times we start with just that goal. Try to get 64 ounces minimum every single day. And they feel better and their blood sugars come down and they're amazed.
That's awesome. It's amazing, right? Water.
Yeah.
It's so
water.
easy and it's
just
there,
water.
but it's not easy to, to remember to drink water. I'm definitely going to be drinking some water after this live here. So staying hydrated consistently and your body starts craving it. That's wonderful. Yes, to go back to the question that you asked, what are other benefits of pickleball? It's really great. I mean, as we already are kind of aware of, it's great for the muscles. It's great for the nerves to make sure things are moving and you're getting exercise. And in that, with any exercise, it's good for the cardiovascular system, getting your heart strong and pumping and getting your lungs working and improving your respiratory system. It's great for your coordination and your balance, which isn't necessarily a specific system. It's kind of all of it working together with your brain and your receptors and all throughout your body. And it's also just great for friends and building relationships with people. A lot of us need that social time and some people that we can connect with. So it's another really, really great way to do that. It gets you outdoors, which a lot of us are seeing. We need to get outdoors more for like our mental health.
Yes.
In our chat here, it's there's so many great benefits. It covers your health and it covers your ability to be with your develop good relationships. Yes, but I wanted to thank you again, Marcia, for being here today. This is awesome. We went basically a full hour. I'm so grateful to everybody who asked questions in the Q&A. There's so much good information going out there. And if there's more information, I'm sure we're going to hop onto another Q&A at some point. But please share, where can my followers find you or anybody else that's watching this find you?
You can find me at DiabetesDietitianRD, and I'm on Facebook that way and or Instagram. Love to have you there. I'm trying to do new things and just spread some information so people have that to go to. If you ask me any question, and if you need any of that information, I'll make sure I get it to you, Sarah, so that you can share it with your people. And thank you for having me. It was so much fun, and I've learned so much.